Welcome everyone, my name is Ebuka Obiuchi and you're welcome to this Rubbin Minds special in partnership with the Future Project. We're going to be talking about several issues along the way, including security, politics, the economy and everything in between as we move to 2023 when politics will hit its peak. Let's start the conversation. Don't just stand there teasing me. Now it's time to show and
united we'll stand. It's better we live together as one. Nigeria, united we stand. It's better we live together as one. We are one Nigeria, we will rise. We are one Nigeria. Stand. Oh, we are one Nigeria. We will take back our land and make it a better place. We getting better. We getting stronger.
Welcome to the 2 weeks Rubbin Minds special of the Young and Emerging Leaders Symposium in collaboration with the Future Project. Africa's largest economy, Nigeria, recently exited its second recession since 2016. Nigeria had been grappling with low growth before the coronavirus pandemic triggered a recession and created large financing gaps, including dollar shortages and inflation. The buying power of Nigerians has dropped drastically as their income has remained fixed, while prices of goods skyrocket. On the Young and Emerging Leaders Symposium on Rubbin Minds in collaboration with the Future Project, on the first panel, Ebuka speaks on the policies and policymaking in Nigeria and its impact on the economy with Professor Kingsley Moghalu.
Now we're going to be starting our conversation today speaking on the economy. And we have a special guest here with us who is a man of many parts. He's a politician, a political economist, an officer of the Order of the Niger, and a professor, I believe. Professor Kingsley Moghalu is here with us. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Ebuka.
Let me just start very quickly with something that is obviously on the minds of everybody around the world, which is the pandemic. We're hearing about so many variants now, which is quite troubling. I saw a headline sometime this week saying that Africa has hit its highest number of cases this week since the pandemic started in March 2020. So it looks like things are even getting worse because of the Delta variant. But there are people who would say that Africa seems to have sort of weathered the storm of the pandemic with regards to number of cases and things along those lines. But with the economy, a lot of countries are struggling, Nigeria particularly. So I guess my question to you is, first of all, with the pandemic, whether it's with regards to how healthcare was managed, but more importantly with the economic recovery, because we're seeing very scary numbers with inflation, with unemployment numbers. What would you have done differently if you were in charge?
What the pandemic has exposed, and this is one of the things I knew before, but it's become clearer to me as a special envoy of the United Nations Development Program, the UNDP, on post-COVID development finance for Africa. And in that assignment, we have studied the economic impact of COVID, the fiscal impact of COVID, and we are working on a report that will recommend options for African countries for the future. One of the weaknesses or fundamental problems we see is the absence of state capacity. That is to say, the absence of capacity among governments in Africa, including Nigeria, to prepare themselves and their governments for eventualities such as this. Many African countries have had to borrow. Nigeria, for example, was not able to provide a robust fiscal response in terms of palliatives, financial palliatives for its citizens. You saw, for example, in the United States, they were distributing their checks for $1,200, $600, and so on. But we were not able to do that in this country. South Africa was able to do something to that effect. Some measures were put in place by the central bank to help support businesses. But that was not enough. I think our response was to the tune of about $3 billion. South Africa was able to respond to the tune of over $20 billion to support its citizens. So what I would have done different is that from the beginning, as a leader, what you understand is that you have to position your country, invest in social infrastructure, that is healthcare and education. Make your country fiscally robust by developing sources of domestic revenue for your country so that you don't have to go a-borrowing all the time. Because as we know, he who goes a-borrowing goes a-sorrowing. So Nigeria has a very weak fiscal base, and because of that, the future of the young Nigerians today is being mortgaged. The National Assembly has just approved another $6 billion borrowing tranche. So a leader prepares for the future before the future comes. And so that when that future comes, that future is the future you envisaged, not a future that is very different from what you want, which where we are today with COVID in Nigeria. So risk management is also a very important part of the thinking of any leader in the 21st century. And that is something I would prioritize. You've got strategy, you've got risk management. Those two are necessary.
So, I mean, is it fair to say that, because a lot of people in government have argued that, you know, they were caught between a rock and a hard place, where the first recession we saw in 2016 was almost inevitable, according to the analysis, because oil prices were always going to crash. They came in at a time when it happened. There was a recession at the time. We're just starting to sort of witness a recovery, then COVID hit. Are we being fair on them with your analysis now, saying they were not prepared, considering how they have sort of presented their case, saying they were in a tough place anyway?
I think, you know, we have to be balanced in the way we look at these things. But I'm being more than fair because I'm actually being kind. Because when you talk about inevitability of the oil price crash, that takes us to a fundamental issue of governance. Why is Nigeria a monoproduct economy that relies only on crude oil for its fiscal revenues? Why can't Nigeria generate taxes from amongst its people? Why is our tax to GDP ratio 6%, one of the lowest in the world? This is why we are where we are. It's not just about COVID. There are fundamental factors that our government and our governance and our politics should address, but are not addressing. And so, you know, in Nigeria, we are all about politics, but we're not about governance. So all you have is politics without governance, and it's the consequence that we are seeing in the impact of COVID in this country.
I like the fact that you touch on unemployment there, because that's something that's very piercing to a lot of people. Like you said, about a third of the Nigerian population is unemployed. If you focus on young people alone, it's almost half the young population
Absolutely.
in Nigeria is unemployed. If you add the underemployed numbers, it's even scarier. How do you come out of a situation like this? Because we're even hearing that we've not even peaked yet, that things will even get worse before they start getting better. How do you come out of such a scary position now? Because COVID is still here with us. Most economies are still not opening up. Some of the sectors that young people seem to be thriving in, we seem to get very conflicting policies with the tech situation. Entertainment is not thriving as it used to because of COVID. So what does a government do at a time like this?
One of the things a government does not do is to try to ban its citizens from accessing Twitter. We have lost billions of naira in economic revenues to a lot of young people and other Nigerians who have their hustle based on Twitter and on social media. This is adding to the unemployment. This is adding to the economic recession. So, but beyond that, I think we need to go back to the fundamentals. How do you prepare an economy such as Nigeria to employ its citizens? One of the things you do is that you create an enabling business environment. You create an enabling business environment by encouraging innovation and the mass production of the products of innovation, for example. You work on the educational system by investing, especially at a time like this, in making sure that young people have skills and access to capital. Some of that is being attempted, but I don't know how efficient these things are when they are done by the government. The problem, one of the fundamental problems we have in managing Nigeria's economy is that there is absolutely no philosophical foundation for economic management in Nigeria. And go and check the economy of any country that is prosperous. There's always a very clear philosophical vision underpinning how it's managed. Why am I saying this? In Nigeria, the government is everything and is into everything. But you have to create a proper balance between the state and the marketplace. So if the government wants to dictate the price of fuel, the government wants to dictate the price of your SIM card, the government wants to dictate, the government in Nigeria is everywhere and it is suffocating our country, suffocating our economy. So When they try to do these interventions, palliatives, this, that, it's always the government. What happens? At the end of the day, corruption comes in, political favoritism comes in, and the marketplace efficiency is lost, and therefore more people remain unemployed. When you're doing all these social interventions, many of them are just recycling poverty. It is not creating wealth. I am in the business of creating wealth. How do you create wealth? You allow the private sector to drive the process. You create an enabling environment for that private sector to run businesses, and then you maintain a regulatory eye on them. Because you can't let everything just go haywire. Otherwise, it will be dog eat dog, and you will have a mind for the poor. But you see, for you to be able to do social welfare effectively, you must first create wealth before you can redistribute it. You cannot go and be borrowing money and say you're borrowing to fund a palliative program. Who does that? We need a massive venture capital fund of not less than $1 trillion, in which the government is only an investor, but the government will not run it. Because if the government runs it, politics will go into it. The private sector should run the fund, and that fund will give young people and unemployed people capital, but not credit. Another problem we have in Nigeria is that everything is credit-based. And because the price of capital is high, interest rates are high, so the government tries to subsidize this by using central bank interventions at single interest rates. But one of the things that happens is that anything the government is doing, people see it as AWOOF money. We need to come and get this money from the government. So there is no efficiency in it. There is no risk management of it. You're not sure how many people are paying back those loans in reality. You're not measuring the economic effect of those loans. But if it was venture capital, which is equity capital, the venture capital fund will give you the money and co-own the business with you. You don't have to pay back any credit, so you're not under the burden of paying back with interest rates and all that. But the investing fund will co-own your business. So they will make sure that you're practicing proper corporate governance and that you're not wasting their money. And so if you run your business successfully for 4 or 5 years, you make profit, you can buy them out. The fund can exit from your business. These are the kinds of things. And then a lot of investment in skills. A productive economy is an economy with productive knowledge, know-how. That's what we call it. That's what creates economic diversification.
All right.
And that's what creates.
I just want to quickly touch on the central bank, which you mentioned here. The Naira is pretty much embarrassing at this point. It's almost a compliment to say it's in a free fall, because nobody understands what's happening there. What's your honest...
That's my favorite currency.
What's your honest analysis of the way the central bank has handled the situation with the Naira? And, they had a Naira for dollar policy some time ago. I don't know how that's worked out. What do you think about, Godwin Emefiele and the central bank and the Naira?
Now, this is not an analysis or an opinion about any individual. Let me say one or two things about the central bank for the record, and let it be very clear. One, Nigeria is relying excessively on the central bank for the management of its economy. And that's one of the signs that the Nigerian state is failing. When you see a central bank being involved in as many things as our central bank currently is involved in, and yet the fundamentals are getting worse, the economy is not improving despite all the central bank interventions. There are many people who still cannot afford 3 square meals a day. So that is not the fundamental role of a central bank. This is the point I'm trying to make. The management of the Nigerian economy is based on about 3 or 4 pillars, or should be. You have national planning. You have the fiscal side of economic management. That is public revenue and debt management by the Ministry of Finance. Then you have monetary policy by the central bank, and the financial system and the payment system of the private sector. Then you have trade policy. So these are all aspects of the economy. But today in Nigeria, many people, when you talk about the economy, their immediate point of reference is the central bank. That immediately tells you that the central bank is being overburdened. One of the consequences of this is that the central bank becomes less independent than it should be. You see, and therefore it begins to serve the interests only of the government, but not of the larger economy, or to serve the interests of a regime or a government in power at a time, but not the longer term interest of the economy. So my short-term solution is this. There's no getting away from it. The government cannot continue to fix the price of the naira, which is what the central bank is trying to do. When I was a deputy governor of the central bank, oil was at about $100 a barrel. So we had the latitude to do what we call the managed float regime. And we kept the naira within a band relative to the dollar, between 160, 165, that sort of thing, for most of the time. And we were successful because we had the firepower to do that. But the economic environment in Nigeria today has changed fundamentally. And so I say we have to float the naira. The naira has to find its price and its value in the market. What does that do? It's going to be rough at first. I want to tell you it will be horrible. It could mean the naira going up massively. But what will happen? Just like the SIM card many years ago used to cost 20, 30,000 naira, and today you can pick it up for nothing. Market forces will bring the price of the dollar down. Nigeria is a 200 million population economy. Many people want to invest in it. They're prepared to bring in dollars if they feel that they make a profit. The more people bring in those dollars to make a profit, the demand and supply factors will kick in, the price of the dollar will begin to drop. Second, if you float the naira, you stop subsidizing imports. The way our country is structured today, with the way the central bank is going, it is subsidizing an import economy. While the policy position officially is that we want made in Nigeria, it's not going to work because there will be arbitrage. Some people will access the naira at proper official rate, sell on the black market, even though they tell you they're producing something with it, but it's not true. So what you do when you float the naira is that you create an incentive for those who want to export things and earn forex. So that way you begin to structurally shift your economy towards exports rather than imports. But you must combine this with trade policy.
Thank you very much, sir, for that. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I still had a few questions, but I guess we'll leave it to the future. Good luck with your run and your future in politics.
It's the future project.
And thank you very much for being here today. We'll take a break now and be right back. Please don't.
Thank you for having me.
2020 saw the rise of so many voices that would shape the future of Nigeria. These young people use all they have, risk their lives, disburse their funds, pulled around each other, and use their platform to demand from the government and rally around for causes that would, in their own opinions, birth a new Nigeria. At the Young and Emerging Leaders Symposium, we quiz the present state of citizen activism and social movements in Nigeria. What have been the visible effects of the Nigerian government? How can citizen activism and social movements further improve good governance in Nigeria? How can the Future of Information Act be adopted to keep the government on its toes? On this Rubbin Minds special of the Young and Emerging Leaders Symposium, in partnership with the Future Project, Ebuka speaks with Tacha Akide, Aisha Yusufu, Deba Mr. Macaroni, Reno Odwala, and DJ Switch.
Welcome back to this Rubbin Minds special, and we're going to be talking about safe spaces for young people, voices, and of course social activism. If you're just joining us, yes, the Rubbin Minds special, and we're focusing on the Future Project Symposium. We're joined now by a couple of special guests. We also have a virtual audience besides the audience here with us. Speaking of our panelists here today, first of all, I'd like to introduce Tacha Akide, who's here with us. Thanks for being here. Once again, thanks for always coming back. And of course, virtually, we're joined by Aisha Yusufu, Mr. Macaroni, DJ Switch, and Reno Odwala. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. Okay, Let me come to you, Aisha. The federal government, I think we saw a headline recently saying that every Nigerian is owing, is it 217,000 naira each. I don't know if you have any plans to start repaying yours before it increases, but when you hear things like that, do you still have any hope for the future with young people in this country?
Thank you so much, Erica, for having me here. When I first of all heard that, the first thing that came to my mind was, okay, can I just pay my own and be done? But then the sad reality is that there are a lot of people who all throughout their lifetime, they would never see that amount. And that is where we must always look at issues when we are thinking about government, not just the way it affects us, but the way it affects a lot of people who are not privileged. So at every time we must think about that. And one of the things that I would say right now is the father. First of all, I'm not youth. I'm almost 50. So definitely. But if you're talking about safe space for youth, the safe space must come from our houses. Parents must understand that their children, even when as young as 1, 2, that have a voice and they have a right to their voice. They must be listened to. I've said it several times, and I'm going to repeat it here again. The first set of dictators that Nigerians came across were actually parents. So because they were used to their voice being shut down, that's the reason why as adults, they have replaced their parents with government and see nothing wrong in their voices being shut down. At the end of the day, like I always say, we are citizens, we are not slaves, and we should look at this and know that not whatever decision that the government is making, it affects all of us, because the borrowing that is happening is going to be paid by us and also going to be paid by Nigerians that are not yet born. Let us always think about that. Thank you.
All right, let me come to you, Mr. Macaroni. We're talking about safe spaces here, and we saw what happened in October. You were very actively involved with that, with the protests, the NSAS protests. There was a lot of sort of evidence that people believed came off of social media. Then we've now seen the train has gone on now to a Twitter ban or a temporary suspension, like the government called it. A lot of young people had always thought that, social media was one of those safe spaces. It's beginning to look like it might not be. What are your thoughts on that, and how do we come out of this? Because what's the Twitter suspension, for example, seemed like it would be like a joke. A day or two will be out of it. We're over a month down the line now, going on 2 months, and nothing seems to be done or being said about it being lifted anytime soon.
So, from the protest then to where we are now, Twitter ban, we are dealing with a government that has refused to understand the plight of the people. So rather than understand the pains of the people and what people are going through, the government is quick to react instead of responding. And that's where I always think they have an issue. People complain about things, we say this is what we're going through, and your next line of action would be to ban the tool by which they are using to complain, because one way or the other, the government feels people are insulting them. I always say something. The government works for the people. That's why you're there. You're not there as a lord. This is not the system of king, the ruler, anything we are talking. No, in our system of law we did. So the government is working for we the people. As a matter of fact, now we be the organ for this whole equation. It has to be a matter of, I say I'm going through something like this. I say I'm not happy with this educational system, insecurity issues, this and that. I expect that the government listens to what I'm saying and take measures to tail whatever situation is. So we are dealing with and okay, let's also look at the number of social media users that we have in Nigeria, and the numbers of Nigerians that are benefiting positively. They are benefiting from social media. Of course, like me, I'm benefiting from social media, and a lot of Nigerians out there. A government that is thinking about the progression of her people will not say that you want to take away the means of livelihood of some people because you feel insulted. It shows that we are dealing with a government that cares less about what the people think and will only continue to do like this. So I believe it before and I'm saying it again that what we can do to help ourselves. Number one, we must never get tired of lending our voices. Is what whether they like it or not. People like me, the voice I get and the platform where I get to, now I go to use to call public office holders to account. So while we are holding them accountable, while we are speaking up, we must also know that now the age of say the votes no dey count, this one you don't pass. The energy that we built during NSAS, that energy, that unity, that loud movement where we get, we have to convert it into numbers now. Say, okay, yes, so we want to let our own vote count. We want to have a voice. That kind of force from NSAS, we not fit convert them into politics, into votes, where we no see results.
Very well said. Tasha, let me come to you now. And something he touched on because, like I said, October happened, the NSAS protest happened, it ended the way it ended very, very sadly. There's a lot of people who are almost disillusioned. You know, they feel like protests, do they really work? What's the point of all of this? You know, we're just going to keep talking, the government doesn't listen. If after what happened in October, we're still talking about the Twitter ban just a few months later, you know, do you think protests work in Nigeria? And how do you tell someone who says there's no point to all of this to keep going?
Well, yes, I 100% believe that protests work. Because, I mean, if protests do not work, why does the government keep doing too much in trying to disrupt us? I mean, we try to gather, you'd see heavy security agents on ground, intimidating people and making people scared. Protests actually do work. I mean, this is not the time where we have to just keep quiet and say, okay, well, because the NSAS movement did not exactly do what we needed it to do, doesn't mean we should just keep calm and stay at home. We need to keep demanding for accountability from the government. We need to keep asking questions. We need to keep making demands. We need to keep letting them know that Nigeria is not a failed state, but so far so good, Nigeria has not preached or delivered democracy to the people. So we have to keep demanding. And yes, I 100% really think protests actually do work.
Thank you very much for that. Reno, you have been quite persistent, you know, with what you believe in with regards to what government should be doing. Even when it looked like all hope was lost, you still kept speaking up. I mean, you've gone through the rounds, you know, frozen accounts and all of that. What is a young person supposed to be thinking at this point, right? Because we still have about 2 years of this government. There's a lot of people who are not very excited with where they are now. We've talked about the unemployment numbers where they are. We're talking about almost half the young population isn't working. And as long as that is the case, there are a lot of people who are going to not be happy. But there's also a belief, like I asked Tasha, that, you know, what can I do and how do I go about it? From a government that seems not to want to listen, or at least gives off that perception. You know, are there ways around it besides protesting, for example? The safe spaces we're talking about, social media was one of them, like I said, but it doesn't seem to be as, the government doesn't seem to give it the sort of air that we would expect it to have. What other sort of spaces are there for you?
For me, I think that a lot of young people in this country, there is a word which I can just find right now to categorize what we're feeling, which is just tired. Many of us are mentally exhausted, and there seems to be no way out. You know, as we grow up in this country, for many of us, I mean, say 85% of us, it has always been all the best you can and just japa. And now, you know, we're talking about safe spaces, an environment where young people can contribute or participate in economic issues, social issues, political issues, without any discrimination, without harassment, without bias, an environment for us to grow, to learn, without fear of insurgency or insecurity, a space that gives us the awareness that we have a right to our point of view, that we can confidently announce our opinions, our rights to education, that we can develop confidence and skills to speak out, to engage with government, to advocate around our own rights. Spaces where we can be comfortable in our own skin, where we won't be attacked for the things that we do or say. Let's talk about Nigeria, for instance. People that are advocating for rights have had to leave the country. Youths are being shot at protest ground. Social media is being gagged. What medium? Macaroni said one thing that social media is one of the last few places where people can hold government accountable, can criticize government. Let's ask ourselves, what medium do not just young people today, do Nigerians have to actually hold the government accountable? What medium can we say this is what we don't like about the policies, about what you are offering us? What ways can we actually tell the government, we think that this path that you're going down is not the right one for us? It's only through social media that we do things today. Social media is one of the last places we can actually talk. And safe spaces are about the ability to express our views on social media through digital platforms without psychological abuse, without harassment or bullying. An opportunity for us to discuss political participation. Now, the safe spaces that the spaces that we have, young people in Nigeria today, are unsafe. They are inaccessible, like the Twitter ban. They are inflexible. They are draining. They don't change anything, like Thatcher said regarding the protests. We cannot walk on the streets for fear of thugs, for fear of carjackers, for fear of armed robbers. We cannot travel on the road for fear of kidnappers. There are no jobs for young people because the system has failed to provide none. We can't even access good healthcare because doctors are being old, but our presidents can get premium healthcare from London and from other Western countries. Like I said, we can't even go to school. Our educational spaces are not safe for fear of kidnappers, anybody may threaten strike at any time. So the condition that we are in today is being exhausted. Young people moved from participating in traditional institutions of politics to, okay, let us just participate, let us engage in participatory politics. Social media discuss, at least there we can feel safe. How many young people voted last election? It's because young people do not feel safe to go out there anymore to vote. We have lost hope in what should give us succor. I mean, I said it, we're talking on, was it Rubbin Minds last time? I said being Nigerian alone should give us free access to mental health support because we need it. The only people our government is capable of attacking as young people. You can, while we are patting real criminals on the back. Just last year, like you asked, when young people decided to use a medium to express their pains, their worries, their agony of being victims of police brutality. Were we not shot and killed during protests last year? Are young people not still dying daily at the hands of police brutality, even after the NSAS protest ended? Examples of safe spaces. Are young people adequately prepared for the changing world, especially young Nigerians? Very modern, often we are disempowered when it comes to making decisions and difference in our communities. Our environment encouraging us to be active community citizens. In fact, if you ask 85% of us believe that our government doesn't care about our opinions. So as a result, we're unaware of fundamental rights, fundamental responsibilities. Now, what you asked me, to the question you asked me, what other spaces are available for young people? Now, for me, I think we have two kinds of spaces: physical spaces and digital spaces, where we can freely express our views and pursue our dreams. Now, when we talk about physical spaces, like I said earlier, are our schools safe? Do we have safe jobs, high quality jobs? Are our roads safe? Are our farms safe? Are our homes safe? We are not even safe on our own street. Physical spaces are no longer safe. Digital spaces are no longer safe. What safe spaces are available for young people in Nigeria today? How can we fully contribute to our community when we are being threatened, both online and offline? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. DJ Switch, my question to you apparently, I think, is linked with, I had asked Thatcher, what if protests work? Now, leading from Reno's point, I want to ask you, do social media protests work? I just saw a comment pop up from one of our online audience members saying that social media activists are also a part of the problem. I couldn't see the rest of the comment, but I'm sure you hear things like that, where you say, like Reno said, keypad warriors. Are those things effective? I mean, you played a huge part in the way the NSAS protest sort of was viewed around the world eventually, and it happened online or on social media. Do you feel like it was worth it eventually? And is social media still a viable way of speaking truth to power in a country like Nigeria?
Thank you, Abel, for having me here, and shout out to everyone on here. The full short answer is yes, it works. I mean, you can see the actions the government is taking on social media, right? Just this morning, I saw a clip of some people who went to submit a petition requesting that the government ban Facebook. It was so exhausting to look at. I didn't even watch the entire thing. But the short answer is yes, because of social media, like you said, the world heard our story, okay? And because of that social media, in fact, because of technology as a whole, you and I we're all having this conversation because of technology. It's important that we continue to speak using these types of medium. But now, it's not so easy to just come to Lekki Tollgate and shoot people when you're online. So what they are trying to do is shut down these platforms so that you can't speak or track you. I mean, I'm a bit like confused how they do it and how they utilize resources that they can use for something else. These people can track you to your home, right? Because of a Facebook post, because of a Twitter message. They can track you to your house. So the short answer is yes. And with regards to protest, it's very, very important. Look, I always say this, right? If you go back in history, you look at the Martin Luther Kings, the Nelson Mandela, even the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Buhari, he has protested before. This is an effective way to voice out frustrations, an effective way to voice out everything that you need, you want to say to your government. It's such an effective way, right? And these people have used it in the past. Unfortunately, the one we have here, right, used it for his own benefit. And now that he's in power, he's shutting down future leaders from actually expressing themselves while actively trying to do that online. So the short answer is yes. If not, they wouldn't have been, I mean, if it's not effective, they wouldn't be bothering about it. They wouldn't want to shut down protests. They wouldn't want to try to gag people. They wouldn't try to gag social media. So yes, it works.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Macaroni, you went through something quite traumatic for a lot of people. We saw the videos of you being arrested. You were kept in police custody. You were beaten up. Simple question, what keeps someone like you going? Because for a lot of people, that happens to them, like Reno said, it's time to jackpot because it's like, there's nothing here for me anymore. But you're still actively involved in, activism. And you're a young person. What is different about how you see things that maybe other young people should see with regards to, trying to speak up and continue to hold government accountable?
Don't just stand there teasing me. Now it's time to show and prove.
This is a Rubbin Minds special of the Young and Emerging Leaders Symposium in collaboration with the Future Project. This conversation continues next week.
Wanna get with you. Don't just stand there teasing me. Now it's time to show and prove.
Weeks ago, the election pre-registration portal was opened, and in less than a day, 48,000 people were registered. Campaigns and conversations are ongoing to get more people involved in the 2023 elections. Despite the growing youth activism and mobilization in Nigeria, the youths are yet to achieve a notable inclusion in the nation's politics. Politics of money, the absence of a strategic political plan, and poor internal democratic practices among major political parties hinder young Nigerians in gaining political representation for national development. On Rubbin Minds, Ebuka Obiochendu speaks with God Bless Otubure, Timi Olagunju on the roadmap to 2023.
Wanna get with you. Don't just stand there teasing me. Now it's time
Welcome back to this Rubbin Minds special in partnership with the Future Project. And today we're going to be talking about the roadmap to 2023, of course, talking about the elections coming up in about 2 years. And on this panel today, I'm being joined by Timi Olagunju, who's right here with me. And virtually, God bless Otubure. Let me start with you, Timi. We're talking 2023. It might seem far, but it definitely isn't that far when you talk about Nigerian politics. The conversation has started with regards to the elections coming up, but it seems to be heavily centered around zoning and regions and where power should go as against the quality of candidates or the kinds of candidates that we should be looking at. Is that unusual in a country like Nigeria where people believe that these conversations should be had for the unity of the country? Are we off track? Or is it too early to be looking at quality for now? Maybe we're going to get there. What are your thoughts generally on where we are headed?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me, Ebuka. Fantastic question. The truth about it is this. When we ignore history, right, we're doomed to repeat same. The trajectory of elections in Nigeria has always been centered around these primordial conversations. And we can see the quality of leadership or governance that we get because of these primordial conversations that we have, sacrificing quality. And so when you see this kind of thing happen before 2023, primordial conversations, it tells you that the quality of leadership that we will get from this kind of conversations, right, will not be anything different from what we've ever had historically. And you see, it goes to foundational problem. You see, this issue about primordial conversations taking the fore is not a new issue. It's been theoretized by a political scientist, a Nigerian, called by the name Eke, who talked about primordial conversations and civic conversations, or primordial public and civic public. And he postulated that, you see, the structure of Nigerian political framework, even African political framework, has been driven by primordial conversations, primordial public. And so when someone from a particular tribe or religion does an act of corruption against the Nigerian state, his people will say, look, he's our son, leave him, he's doing it for us, right? As long as he circles back that corrupt fruit back to his people, he's seen as a good boy, keep doing it. And so you see the foundation of our electoral practices, our election, our nation is built on a faulty foundation. And I like to say, paraphrasing, if the foundation be destroyed, the ladies know better. What can the makeup artists do than have a powdered approach? And so we've had a powdered approach to our election in Nigeria, and it will bring out a powdered leadership. Nothing different.
Thank you very much for that. Now, God bless, about 75% of the National Assembly members are new at every term, but things do not change. And you look at the other side of the argument where people like you, who were part of the Not Too Young to Run movement, get people very excited about, flushing these old people out and getting new people in to get things done. It doesn't look like that's ever going to happen from what we are hearing. How do you get young people to still believe in a system that doesn't seem to want to change regardless of who is there?
Thank you, Ebuka. So how do we get young people to believe in a system that doesn't look like, it wants to change? So for me, I'll say to young people that the work of changing a country is not a 100-meter dash. To be honest, it's not also a marathon because it doesn't end. It's a continuous work to push the idea of social freedom and societal freedom that we all can believe in. And when young people see that their future is tied to whether the country is good or bad, the idea that we must chip in and continue to contribute and work the system to ensure that it is what we want is why young people must continue to engage at any given time. Because when you look at the world, everything that has happened, whether in America or in Europe or any other society that has experienced change, clearly young people have continued to lead the way. Because, I mean, look, when you see what we're building these days, it's really enough for young people to say, look, we've got to be part of the system. We've got to continue to believe. Though it doesn't look like it wants to change, but we must continue to have the picture of a changed society in our head and continue to work towards it. So for me, that's how young people must continue to remain engaged in a system that doesn't look like like it wants to work for them.
All right, so Timmy, let me just ask you the same question. It's always interesting when you get an insider opinion of how things work and how literally he's saying, this thing has been going on for a while. We get the change, but we don't get the change, if you know what I mean. How do you keep people excited, to still be involved in a system where they believe that things are never going to change anyway?
Basically, in terms of getting young people excited, right? When we look at the trajectory of what has happened in the past few years, particularly in this era or regime, we realize that there is a lot of lethargy as a result of the environment. And one of the key things, about excitement is the policy environment or the political environment. And the political environment has a reputation of clamping down on young voices, rather than realizing that these young voices are actually pointing you to where the issues are. And so the voices of young people have been echoing that things are not well, and the government seem not to listen to that. And that is why we have all that we have in the course of what we have now. Now, there seems to be a lot of clamping down on the voices of young people, and it's reflected in our ranking in terms of the rule of law index. So there's nothing to really be excited for. But the core excitement is the fact that one generation leaves and another comes on board. And that excitement is the fact that, look, in the future, what will our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren see of us? Because there is no one who is ever asked when you become, on your birthday, how young are you? You're asked, how old are you? Right? Which means we are aging. And that simply means that one generation will leave and the next generation will come on board. And so what is the future of the next generation? What will the next generation see about us? And that is the key thing that we need to take into cognizance in the course of our excitement getting up. And how do we get this done? 3 things, 3 C's. First C is consultation. Second C is consolidation. The third C is confrontation. I've had a lot of conversation around whether protest really works or not. Look, protest is a part of the democratic process. After the principle of social contract was established, where the government is the employee and the people are the employer, right? And so protest is, so firstly, conversation must happen. And conversation enriches the environment, the understanding, the policy environment. The second part is consolidation. And so when you say the words of truth or facts in the ears of the policymakers, and it comes in from the left ear and goes out from the right ear, maybe because there's nothing in between to hold it, then you need to move to the second point, which is consolidation. Push it through with them. Be part of the process. Get your PVC ready. Ensure that you're not just only getting your PVC. Ensure that where you're registering for your PVC is where you can actually vote. And that is something we need to also take into cognizance. And then the third part is confrontation. When the election is over, are we part of confronting the governance process? And that is where protest comes in, particularly policy advocacy. And so those three C's are important in driving the excitement of young people so that our excitement majors in major, not becoming a minor in major, which is governance.
Wanna get with you. Don't just stand there teasing me. Now it's time to show and prove.
Thanks for joining us on this Rubbin Minds special. Remember, the conversation continues next week. It's a Rubbin Minds special in partnership with the Future Project. I'll see you next week.
You should cut off all distractions. It's all on you now. And just give me some reaction.